Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am trying to get back into book content. It's been quite a bit since I have posted any, but I have decided I'm going to probably be doing book, like what I've read quarterly, because my reading very much so varies. I've technically read in the first 2 months of the year 56 books, but 28 of them were children's chapter books because I did a video on my channel reading my entire childhood favorite book series in one day. So that kind of takes a lot of it. So, but still, I would say that, what? Let's do quick math. 58 minus 50, nope. That's still 28 physical, like, chapter adult novels. Not all adult, some are YA, but like actual full-length novels that I have read so far this year. So I did want to go over them with you in order. I have some of them physical here, some of them I've read on my Kindle and haven't bought in the trophy book version for my bookshelf. This whole section is empty behind me and it looks silly, but we'll fill it, don't you worry. But some of them I haven't bought for myself, some of them I don't plan on buying the physical copy, some I borrowed from friends, so on and so forth. If I have the physical book, I will show you. Otherwise, I will just tell you, okay? So, the first book that I finished, we will start with my January books. We will first and foremost go into my story graph, okay? For January, I will have Chris pop up the chart here, but as you can see, I read predominantly lighthearted books that month, which was because I did the whole thing of reading childhood books. Obviously they're lighthearted. Our next biggest section was emotional, and then funny, and then reflective, and then the least common was sad. I read 37 books, which is 5,103 pages. I read mainly fast-paced books and all fiction. My biggest genre was children's, which makes sense. So we are just gonna jump right on into it. The first book that I read for January was Cloud Girls by Lisa Harding. I gave this book 4 stars. This book does deal though with a lot of very heavy topics. I would 100% recommend looking up trigger warnings if you are triggered by things in general of like a darker nature. This book was about 2 girls, Sammy and Nico, and it's basically about how they both had 2 different lives. Kind of almost reminded me of an Ellen Hopkins book where they're 2 individual people with 2 totally different lives, but due to like horrible circumstances they both end up in really bad situations. And it was, the author got a lot of her information from working with like trafficked women mainly, and yeah, it was very hard to read, but a very, very good book. And if you are able to handle topics like that, I do suggest. The next book I read, I don't have physically, but it was Heartstopper Volume 5, and that was my first 5-star of the year. Round of applause for the 5-star. It was so good, so heartwarming. I can't really go into too much of it without giving away the other books, but just know it was really good. I think it may have been even one of my favorite of all 5 of them so far, and I'm very looking forward to finishing out the series. The next book I read was another graphic novel, and it was called Whitebird, a Wonder Story, and it was a Holocaust-based graphic novel about a young Jewish girl and how she was hiding from the Nazis. It was very, very, very interesting. Oh my god, so emotional. So good if you were interested in those sorts of things, that sort of topic. Definitely recommend that one. I don't have the next book either. I borrowed it from one of my besties. We do this thing, we started this year, where each year we will pick a 5-star read that the other person would not normally pick up, and they have to read it. And her pick was Fourth Wing, which I am not a fantasy girly. As you can tell, I read spooky books. I'm a thriller girly, which I mean isn't really showing currently, but we'll get into it. Thrillers are my favorite books. Not down that. But I did read it. It was a romantasy. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was very interesting, the whole like process of like getting your dragon and such, but I did not like the romance aspect. I did not like the like political aspect. I didn't really care about anything past the dragons, but I really liked the dragon part, so I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm not going to read Iron Flame. I already know what happens. Friend told me. Not interested in it. But I can see the hype. I understand why people love it. And yeah, it was very easy to read for a fantasy. It's one of the things I hate about fantasy. I feel like coming from reading mainly thrillers and like some romance here and there, like those books are like speedy. And then when you read fantasy, for me personally, I'm just like eyes glazed over. That was not the case with that one. So then we moved into my first thriller of the year, which was The Last Word by Taylor Adams. And I've read No Exit by Taylor Adams, and I absolutely loved that book last year. 5 out of 5 stars. It was incredible. Everybody was gassing up this book. It's basically about a girl who leaves a thriller author a 1-star review, and then the author and her like are going back and forth via email fighting about it, and then like he presumably is coming to get her. It was one of the worst thrillers I have ever read. I hated it. I gave it 2 stars, and I literally, the only reason I didn't give it 1 star was like out of fear that the author would come after me. Okay? I did not like it. I do not recommend it. No Exit was so much like exponentially better, and I feel like I only hear people say good things about The Last Word, so I know I'm in the minority, but like it was just not for me, and there's not really much I can say without spoiling it. So move on to the next 5-star read of the year, which I also have physically, and that is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This book is really, really hyped up. Everybody talks about how much they love Better Than the Movies, and I am in agreement. It was so freaking good, so cute, and this just like reminded me what I like about romance books. And I am not a smut reader for the most part. Once in a while I'll enjoy a book that has some spicy scenes, but it's not for me personally, and I think it really like is why I prefer YA romance, because there is no spice. But this was just so cute. It was just so cute. It's about Liz and Wes and their little story, and then like at the beginning of each chapter, I'm pretty sure there's like quotes from different like rom-coms, and this also did have dead mom situation, which like I got a dead mom, so very emo, very good. Loved that one. Next I had a 4-star read, and that is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. The first Riley Sager book I ever read was House Across the Lake, and I hated that book, and it made me like almost swear off of Riley Sager for forever. And then my friend's mother-in-law wanted me to read The Only One Left, and that completely changed my mind, and now I'm on the Riley Sager train. And Lock Every Door was really, really good. I gave it 4 stars. This is about Jules, and she's kind of like a broke girly, and she gets offered this job working as like a house sitter for the Bartholomew, which is like a old famous spooky hotel in New York City. And like she feels like weird things are happening, and she's trying to figure it out. And if you've read a Riley Sager book, you know you're hit with about 6,000 different twists towards the end of the book, and it did not disappoint. Also, it's just like so pretty, like all the hot pink. Love it. Loved this book. So good. Highly recommend. After that, I did read This Winter by Alice Osman, which is the like novella for the Heartstopper series. It's like a little Christmas novella. It was kind of like out of season because it was mid-January at this point, but it was still super, super, super good. I believe I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Would recommend if you're wanting a little bit more of like a taste of that couple. The next was another 5-star read for me, and it is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This was like the amount of like hold on, I need to get some water. Okay, I did look at the tags to make sure I wasn't making that up. This is like the amount of like magical I can handle, because it is tagged magical realism, And this book is about Lucy, and she is a teacher, and she has this like childhood favorite author that she is obsessed with, who has not come out with a book in many years. She's a teacher's aide, and she doesn't make a lot of money. So she doesn't make a lot of money, and there is a orphaned student in her class, Christopher, who she desperately wants to adopt, but she does not have the money to do so. And then she gets invited to this author's island with a couple of other like crazed fans, and they are put into a competition to win the manuscript of his new and final novel. And she desperately wants to win the manuscript so that she can sell it and be able to adopt Christopher. And it was just a very heartwarming story. It was so emotional, made me tear up multiple times. I absolutely love this. I've since unsubscribed to Book of the Month because I haven't loved a lot of the books I got from them, but this was one of the finalists for Book of the Year from Book of the Month, and so I did get a second copy of it to gift to my sister because she needs to read it because it's just so emo. So good. Absolutely need to read it, and it's very short. I think it's less than 300 pages. Yeah, it's like 270. Very much so recommend. After that, I'm going to put these right back on the shelf where they belong. I went ahead and read all 28 books of the Junie B. Jones series. If you are interested in like my thoughts and feelings on the individual books, feel free to go back and watch that entire video. It's an entire full-length video of me starting in the morning, going all night, reading the entire series, and I'll be honest with you, it lived up. It lived up to how much I loved it. They were so fun. Some are better than others, but overall 5-star for a childhood series. I absolutely adored those books as a kid. They hold up to me. I know that some parents have like some like issues with them, which I'm not a parent, so like I don't really have any say in it, but like the first book is literally called The Stupid Smelly Bus, and I know some people are against their kids using words like that, which I understand, but I'm going to be honest with you. They were my favorite books. I read them all as a child, and I was a goody two-shoes and still am. So, teacher's pet, goody two-shoes, so it really did not impact my behavior. But you do what you wish with your children. I loved those books, and I love them still as an adult. And guess what? I read them, and it took me a whole day to do it, so I'm counting them towards my reading. And you can't tell me otherwise. The next book, I really don't remember this book, and I gave it 4 stars, so maybe I should. Oh, I do remember this one. I thought that this book was a thriller, but it's actually a YA contemporary fiction with a slight bit of thriller. I got this used. I didn't actually get it for Book of the Month, but it is called it's called Past Perfect Life by Elizabeth Eulberg. And I gave this 4 stars, and this book is basically about a girl named Allie, and she has like a great life. It's her and her dad. Her mom's not in her life. I don't remember what the circumstances regarding that were in the story, but she's just going through high school. She's in her senior year, and she's applying to college, and as she's applying to college, she's having issues with her social security number. And then all of this, it says this in the synopsis, so it's not a spoiler. It's then her life is blown apart because she learned she's not actually Allison Smith. Her real name is Amanda, and she's been a missing child for 15 years. So it's basically about that and like what happens with her life once she finds out the truth and what the truth is and why everything went down the way that it did. It was very interesting. I've never read anything like it, and I did enjoy it a lot. It was very emotional, tugged at a lot of heartstrings, but I do overall recommend it. I also think we're moving into February. Yes, hold on, let's get into February stats, which again, I will have Chris pop up the stats here. I barely read in February. I read 5 total books in February, and I only read 1,602 pages. But predominantly, I read mysterious, tense, and dark books this month. And yeah, started with that one. The next book that I read, which me and my sister are doing this thing as well, where once a month we mail each other, because I live in Texas now, but I used to live in New York. And so once a month we'll mail each other one of our 5-star reads. And this was the one she had given me. We started this in February, but this is the one she gave me for February. Yeah, we like backlogged it because I gave her 2, so this was technically her January pick. Okay, sorry. This is Awake by Natasha Preston. It was my first Natasha Preston book, and I did give this book 5 stars. Maybe I'm giving out 5 stars willy-nilly, but like I stand by it. But this book was so good. I gotta figure out the name of the character, you know. Scarlet. So this is about a girl named Scarlet, and she basically has no memories from like before the age of 4, and her family doesn't really like to talk about it. They got into a car accident when she was 4 years old and she lost all of her memories, but like they're just like, the doctor says like they'll come back when they come back, it is what it is type of thing. And so as she's getting older, like the memories start coming back. She gets like her first boyfriend, and he's kind of like really pressing her on it, like, isn't it weird that you don't remember anything and your family's not like trying to help you remember it? So like it's like this whole thing between her and her boyfriend. Basically she starts to remember parts of her past, and it scares her. And her parents, it says a past her parents have hid from her and a secret that could get her killed. This was so good. We'll get into another Natasha Preston book here in a little bit that was not, but I do highly recommend that one. And then this is when I got my Kindle and things really changed. Okay, so the first book I read was, I love this one, Dungeons and Drama by Christy Boyce. I gave this 5 stars. It again is super duper short YA romance. If you don't know me, you guys are looking at my bookshelf, but like right there is a 4x4 calyx full of board games, and this whole side of the room is full of board games. And we play D&D, and I go to board game conventions, and it's like a whole thing. So I love D&D, and so reading this was so cute. It is about Riley, and Riley cares about nothing more than Broadway and musicals, and she gets in trouble and ends up getting like her punishment from her parents is her parents are divorced, is that she has to give up theater and work at her dad's board game store as punishment. And through that she starts playing D&D and starts realizing she can play as a bard and still get to like do musical things, and it's just so cute and I loved it. And even though I gave this 5 stars, I don't super duper recommend it, because if you are not interested in board games or D&D, you won't find this like charming like I did. There were references to like things like Ticket to Ride, Pokemon, like Catan, different board games that like I've actually played, and TCGs I've actually played. So I feel like that is what really drew me into this book and why I loved it so much. But if you're not into those things, I don't see it being as appealing. But I really loved it. Then the next 2 books I didn't like them enough to get that. And the next one is The Lost by Natasha Preston. This book was like probably a 4.5 stars up until like the last 15 to 20% of it. What are the characters' names? Piper and Hazel are like best friends, and one of their classmates starts disappearing, and a bunch of people start disappearing, and basically they end up getting kidnapped as well and are like put in these different torture rooms to see if they survive and how they survive. And it's just like this whole like kidnapping situation, which is very triggering. There's a lot of very triggering things in this book. Look up your trigger wordings. You take care of you. But I don't even recommend it. The ending was one of the worst endings I've ever heard in my entire life. When I was reading Awake, my sister had told me that she used to love Natasha Preston, but like her endings of her books suck. And I thought the ending to this book was good. So I was like, you're dramatic, sis. What do you mean the ending's so bad? And then I read The Lost, and oh my god. One of the worst book endings I have ever read. Hated it. Don't recommend. And then I read The Selection by Kira Cass, and I also gave this 3 stars, 3.5. Again, I am not a big fantasy girly, and this is a romantasy dystopian type book. It very much so gave Hunger Games in The Selection. I only read the first book. I might continue the series only because like one of my best friends really wants me to. And it's kind of enticing because she doesn't read thrillers, and like for each book that I read, I'm making her read a thriller. So we'll see. But basically it gives me Hunger Games because everybody lives like, it's almost like the districts. It's like a different number, and 35 girls are selected from the different like districts to compete in a competition called The Selection, where they are trying to win the heart of Prince Maxon. and that's pretty much the story. You have your main girl, her name's America, and though she has kind of like a boy at home that she's in love with, her family really needs the money because they're like Katniss from one of the poor districts. And so they both agree that like she has to enter, and she's most likely not going to get picked. Obviously she gets picked because she's the main character, and it's about her journey going through the selection. It's only like the beginning part of the selection process. I think they only get down to like the top 5 girls in book 1, but it's a whole series. If you are into like a YA romance fantasy type of dystopian vibe, I do recommend it. I think it was fairly interesting for what it was. It's just not totally my cup of tea, so I wasn't obsessed, but I do still think it was good. Let us move into our March stats, which will be the last month. I read a lot in March, a lot in March, because my husband Chris and I, we did go on a belated honeymoon. We got married a couple of years ago, and we decided to move across the country, which took a lot of money, so we did not go on a honeymoon. So we went on a like belated honeymoon, and we went to Italy, which was really long plane rides. So I read a lot. I read 14 books. I read 4,596 pages. Primarily my top 3 was dark, tense, and mysterious, and emotional. Those were all like the top vibes. Sorry about that, my sister called. But next book I read was The Inmate by Frida McFadden. I gave this book 4 stars because I wasn't like obsessed with the ending. But in this book, it's about a girl named Brooke Sullivan, and she gets a job working in a prison. And there are 3 rules. Treat all prisoners with respect. Never reveal any personal information, and never ever become too friendly with an inmate. And she already breaks a rule by the fact that she is high school sweethearts with one of the like worst criminals in the jail. It's all about those lines and what happened in their past, and it was very twisty-turny, as Frida McFadden books tend to be. But I do highly recommend that one. Next up, I read, I missed a book. I missed one. Next, I read Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune, and this is her 2nd book. She does have a new one coming out this summer. I'll absolutely be reading it. The first one was called Every Summer After, which I did like a bit more. Now you guys, the battery's gonna die. Okay, if the angle looks different, it's because I had to move you guys. And I also found another book that I forgot to grab. So the next book, like I said, was Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. I ended up giving this, I believe, 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I went into it kind of with a bad attitude because everybody said it wasn't good compared to Every Summer After. I heard a lot about like the tropes of this book. I didn't really agree with them, like being like that serious in this book. So take what you've heard about it with a grain of salt. Oh my god, I'm falling apart. This is about Fern, and she basically like fell for this guy one summer, and he was supposed to come meet her at the lake, and he didn't show, blah blah blah. Then they it's like a second chance romance. They meet again, and it's like right after her mom dies, and again, dead mom thing, it always pulls me right in. And she's trying to learn how to like run her mom's like resort while dealing with all the feelings of loss and so on and so forth. It was really cute, really nice, great summer read. Highly recommend. Then after that, I did read The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, I don't know. Alex M. And this is like a cult classic thriller. It is about Alicia, and everything in her life seems like it's going well until one day she just like spontaneously freaks out, kills her husband, paints a painting, and never speaks again. And Theo is a therapist, and he is going to the mental hospital that she lives in to crack the code, figure out why Alicia is not talking. And it's just very twisty turny, very good, and I do recommend it. I did not love the ending of this book though. I did find the ending to be kind of cringe-lord, and so I only gave it 4 stars because I hated the ending so much. But I do recommend, if you haven't read it, to pick it up. Next, I read The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden. I read The Housemaid last year, and I really, really enjoyed it. The regular Housemaids, I gave 5 stars. I gave this 3 stars. I didn't think it was all that great. It was just fine. Am I going to read the 3rd one? Yes. But did I like this one that much? No. We are following our same main character, Millie, and she is fired from her babysitting gig, and now she is being like a maid or like a housekeeper for the Garrick family. A bunch of twists and turns. It's hard to really do like a brief synopsis of a thriller without just reading the back and without spilling any secrets. But it says, don't go into the guest room. A shadow falls on Douglas Garrick's face as he touches the door with his fingertips. My wife, she is very ill. As he continues showing me the incredible penthouse apartment, I have a terrible feeling about the woman behind closed doors. But I can't risk losing this job. Not if I want to keep my darkest secret safe. So, like, it's good. If you enjoyed the first one, I would say read it. But, like, it's not a must. It was just, like, fine. Next up is a big fat, I think this was like the first like really shit book I read of the year, and that is, and I'm sorry because I know that this book series has a huge following. People love it. I gave it 2 stars. And it's Twisted Games by Anna Huang, and I hated it. I gave Twisted Love 3 stars. This was my sister's pick for February for me because she hadn't really read anything 5 stars that wasn't one of the books I gave her. And so she went back in time and she knew that I read the first one, so she was like, here's the second one. First off, why is it this big? Why is it over 400 pages? It's 400 pages of absolutely nothing because the story is beyond boring. It is the first, they're like interconnected standalones. This book is about Reese and Bridget. Bridget is like a princess of some like made up country. He is her bodyguard, and they smash. They do the do. They do the no pants dance a lot in this book. And that's fine. But like, I watched a booktuber talk about this book being horrible, and in it she said something that I totally agree with, and I've heard a lot of people be like, oh my god, it's such a slow burn. It's not a slow burn. They're smashing like this far into the book, but they make you think that it's a slow burn because one page will be like, it's been 6 weeks, it's been 2 years, it's been 4 months, and so it's like alluding to it's been a lot of time of them not touching each other, but you're not reading through that longing. You're just getting it's been a while. And I did not like it. I don't recommend. I don't think it was good. And the reason I even have it still physically, because I am a huge, like, if I don't like something, bye-bye. It's going into the little free library, donating it. It's because my sister bought it for me, so I feel like I have to keep it, okay? After that, I had another horrible book, another 2-star, and that is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I don't know. This is the book that had me unsubscribe from Book of the Month because I gave this 2 stars. I am not exaggerating when I say to you. First, I'll go over the synopsis. This book hits the plot. This is a tale of murder, or maybe that's not quite true. At its heart, it's a love story, isn't it? It's about this. Basically, your storyteller is Elliot Chase, and he breaks the 4th wall a lot by being like, okay, reader, but is like, sorry, I injected myself in there too much, reader. Let me try again. I'm gonna try for you, reader, which was very like interesting. I didn't really mind that part. But it's about like his friend Lana. She is an ex-movie star, and she has like her own island in Greece, and she invites a bunch of her friends there, and then somebody ends up dead. This book, I was approximately this far into it. I think I was legitimately like 2 chapters in, and I said to Chris, my husband, here's what I think like this story is, like the twist is, and I was right. I guessed it in 2 chapters. 2 chapters in, I guessed the entire ending of this book. And that's unacceptable. I don't mind guessing a ending to a thriller like 40 to 60% in. That's fine. Like, whatever, but no. And I'm used to reading like Riley Sager where like you could come up with the wildest thing in your mind and it's still not even close to as wild as the ending is gonna be, or like Frida McFadden where it just like moves super quickly, super twisty-turny. This was so boring, and it was marketed as a thriller. It is nothing more than a mystery. It is not thrilling. Nothing about this was thrilling, and it was not good, and I do not recommend, and you should not read it. Okay. Next, I read Practice Makes Perfect, which is the second book in the When in Rome series. I read When in Rome last year, and I wanted to read this while I was on vacation in Rome, Italy, because like that made sense. I gave this 4 stars. This is very cute. Again, it was a it's like an interconnected standalone. I'm assuming, because this says When in Rome #2, that we'll probably get stories about the other sisters, because the first book, I forget the main girl in the first book's name. I'm too lazy to go get it. Amelia. The first book's about Amelia, like the pop star, and she falls in love with Noah. And this is about Noah, one of Noah's sisters, Annie. She is like the sweet little hometown girl, whatever, with her little flower shop, and she's a shit dater. And basically Amelia gets her bodyguard, Will, to like tutor her in dating. And so it's a little bit of fake dating, a little bit of romance, and this is all like closed door romance. It like fade to black alludes to something happening, but you don't really read it. He's like your little bad boy with his tattoos. And if you don't know, like I have a million tattoos, so it's so funny in books when they're like, oh, he's so bad, he has so many tattoos, and I'm like, yeah, well, really dangerous. But it was really, really good. Highly recommend it. Read the first one first. You don't like have to, but I would say to read it first. Next up, I actually just picked this book up currently. So basically how it works, I read the book. If I read a book on my Kindle, I will look for the book at a secondhand bookstore. So it's like cheaper, and it's like a little scavenger hunt when I go there, so I don't go to the bookstore. Adding to my TBR of unread books, I just like buy books from my shelf for cheap. 5-star read. The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. This book was insane. 2 truths and a lie. Vivian, Natalie, Allison, and Emma played this game all the time at Camp Nightingale. And then one night, Emma was like a bit younger than the other girls, but she was late to camp, so she got put in a cabin with some older girls. And yeah, in the middle of the night, the 3 older girls got up and disappeared and were never seen again. And she is now like an adult, and she's a painter, and she keeps painting pictures, and like she'll paint the girls and then cover up the painting with something else. And she can't escape them. And then one day, the woman who owned the camp gets a hold of her, buys one of her paintings, something of that sort, and offers her a job because they're reopening the camp. She ends up taking the job, and it's all about like uncovering the mystery of what happened to the other girls. And let me just tell you, the twists and turns. This is what a thriller should be. I didn't see it coming from a mile away. Highly recommend. Next, I don't have the next 2 books, but I read One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle, and I don't even really know how to describe this. I gave this book 4 stars. It is magical realism, and it's like, I wouldn't even really consider it much romance, but it is about your main gal. I never know names. Katie. Katie's mom is sick with cancer, and she'd always told Katie about this wonderful trip she had taken to Italy, which of course I read this on my trip in Italy. She had told her about this wonderful trip she went on, how it's like the best thing in her life, blah blah blah. And they decide once her mom gets sick, like they're not wasting any more time, they're gonna go together. And then her mom passes away like a month before the trip. Katie decides to go on the trip by herself, and through this, one day she wakes up and she runs into a girl who is like the young 20s version of her mom, and it is her mom, and somehow she's there. And it's just like a story of mother and daughter. And like, I was sitting in my hotel reading this, sobbing, absolutely sobbing. Chris asleep next to me, and I'm just like I was a wreck. But it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Highly, highly recommend if you want a good cry. Then I read Ward D by Frida McFadden, gave it 4 stars. This book is about a medical student named Amy, and she's doing her like rotations for med school, and it's her turn to be on the psych ward, and she is really anxious about it. She's been to this ward one time back in her childhood because one of her like best friends from school got sent to the mental hospital, and in this you like go through her getting to know different patients, this, that, and the other thing, and like she keeps growing convinced that like something terrible is gonna happen that night. Like she keeps getting weird vibes. And yeah, it was another one where I did not see that ending coming. It was absolutely amazing. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Freida McFadden books are good, and Riley Sager books. Like I'm currently about to be like in a book slump. I just DNF'd Real Time Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia Fairies at 50%, and I'm like, I'm immediately reading a Riley Sager book because I need something that's gonna get me good. But it was really, really good. Like 3 more, and I have all of them physically. The next one I read was Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which is the second Wayward children's book. This is about Jack and Jill and their story of their door. I give it 3 stars. I don't think I'm gonna really continue on with this series. I don't like it enough to continue. They're like fine books. I know people really, really, really love them, but it's just not my vibe. This is the second book in a series, so I can't really super delve into it, but again, it's about like Jack and Jill and their spooky, spooky little door. Next, I read Only If You Are Lucky by Stacey Willingham. This is her 3rd book. I've read all of her books. I liked this one the least. I gave it 3 stars. What even was this one about? Oh yeah, this is about a girl named Margot, and she, what even was this about? Hold on. Oh yeah, this is about a girl named Margot, and she and her childhood best friend were going to be going to college together. Best friend dies. She blames it on this one guy. He ends up being in the fraternity that like owns the house her and her friends are living at. And it's like a whole story of trying to figure out what happened actually to her best friend, because the whole thing has been deemed an accident. She doesn't believe it's an accident. And then you know right from the start that Lucy, like one of her new best friend, is like missing. And it flips back and forth between like current time, present time. It was interesting. It was just like almost 400 pages, and it just didn't need to be that long, and parts of it were kind of boring. If you want to read a book by Stacey Willingham, All of the Dangerous Things I liked way better. Then we're gonna end this book on a 5-star. This book was the March pick from my sister, and this was a book that I went into being like, everybody hypes this book up and it's not gonna be that great. It was that great. And it is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book was so good. I'm reading it, like flying through it, and I'm looking over at Chris and I'm like, I don't even get what the point of this book is. Like I get like she's talking about like her husbands, but like I don't get what the actual point is gonna be at the end. And I did not get it until I got it. And then when I got it, I was like, whoa. So good. Highly, 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 highly recommend. This is about a girl named Monique, who Evelyn Hugo kind of like, who is a like infamous socialite celebrity actress, basically seeks her out for a reason unbeknownst to you until the end, to basically, after all of these years, she's like in her 70s now, she's gonna finally tell her life story, and she's gonna tell that to Monique. And you are the whole time like, why is she telling, like, Monique, why is Monique getting this information? I don't get it. And then you get it, and it is amazing. So highly, highly, highly recommend. So of all of these books, what were my 5 stars? I think I have all my 5 stars physically. Like looking through them, I'm like, well, what did I give 5 stars to? I think these are all of my 5 stars for the year so far. So these are like my top recommendations. You can see a theme, like I said, that mainly it's thrillers, but these are the top books that I would recommend to you. If you want like a little Hannah stack, get these books, read these for your next monthly TBR. And that's Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, Better Than Movies by Lynn Painter, Dungeons and Drama by Christy Voice, Awake by Natasha Preston, The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager, and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you would like to see these monthly, let me down below, not monthly, quarterly. Let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!